The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is a classic work by Stephen R. Covey, published in 1989, that has transformed the lives of millions of people and organizations worldwide. In this book, Covey presents a principle-centered approach to achieving genuine and lasting personal and professional effectiveness. Through 7 deeply ingrained habits, Covey guides readers on a journey from dependence to independence, and ultimately to interdependence, where teamwork and collaboration become the keys to success. The habits Covey describes are not merely superficial actions but fundamental principles that help us change from the inside out. These habits teach us to take responsibility for our own lives, set and pursue clear goals, manage our time effectively, build trusting relationships, and continually renew ourselves to maintain growth and well-being. Each habit is presented clearly, accompanied by practical examples and exercises that help readers internalize and apply these principles in their daily lives. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is not just a self-help book, but a guide to living a principled life that allows us to reach our full potential and live with purpose and integrity. Part 1. Paradigms and Principles. Inside Out, Stephen Covey begins his book by explaining how our perceptions and paradigms are the basis of our worldview and actions. Paradigms, or mental maps, are our interpretations of the world, deeply influenced by our previous experiences and beliefs. These paradigms act as lenses through which we perceive reality, and often, our perceptions can be distorted by our underlying assumptions. Covey illustrates how a shift in perception can radically transform our reality using real-life examples and case studies. A common paradigm is seeing ourselves as victims of circumstances, rather than recognizing our ability to influence our own lives. Covey describes how people can fall into reactive thought patterns, automatically responding to external circumstances instead of taking control of their own reactions and decisions. For instance, there are people who constantly complain about their bad luck or the injustices they face, without realizing that they are allowing these perceptions to control their lives. To change effectively, Covey suggests that we must start by examining and challenging our own paradigms. He uses the metaphor of seeing through a lens to explain how our beliefs and assumptions affect our view of the world and our decisions. He also introduces the concept of correct principles as natural laws that are universal and timeless. Aligning our paradigms with these correct principles allows us to see the world more clearly and make more effective decisions. Covey uses a series of exercises and reflections to help readers identify and question their own paradigms. For example, he suggests keeping a journal to record our reactions to different situations and analyze what underlying beliefs might be influencing those reactions. This process of self-examination allows us to develop greater self-awareness and prepares us for deep personal change. Additionally, Covey addresses the impact of our paradigms on our relationships with others. He explains that our paradigms not only affect how we see the world, but also how we interact with other people. For instance, if we have a paradigm of distrust, we are likely to see others with suspicion and act defensively, which can create conflicts and misunderstandings. In contrast, if we cultivate a paradigm of trust and respect, we are more likely to build strong and positive relationships. Personality and character ethics. Covey distinguishes between personality ethics and character ethics, 2 very different approaches to personal development and success. Personality ethics, which has dominated much of the self-help literature of the 20th century, focuses on superficial and manipulative techniques for success, such as public image, attitudes, and behaviors. Covey argues that while these techniques may provide short-term benefits, they are not sustainable in the long term because they do not address the deep roots of our character. In contrast, character ethics is based on fundamental and enduring principles that form the foundation of authentic and sustainable success. These principles include integrity, humility, fidelity, temperance, courage, justice, patience, industry, simplicity, modesty, and the golden rule, treating others as we would like to be treated. Covey explains that developing a character based on these principles requires deep and constant inner work, but the results are much more satisfying and lasting. Covey uses historical stories and examples to illustrate how character ethics has been the foundation of lasting success in different cultures and eras. For instance, he mentions historical figures such as Abraham Lincoln and Mahatma Gandhi, who demonstrated strong character and principles in their lives and leadership. Covey also offers practical exercises to help readers identify and strengthen the principles of character ethics in their own lives. He suggests reflecting on our daily actions and decisions and asking ourselves if they align with our deepest principles. Covey also addresses how character ethics impacts our effectiveness in leadership. He explains that the most effective leaders are those who lead with integrity and who earn the trust of others through their consistent, principle-based behavior. A leader who practices character ethics inspires and motivates others through their example, creating an environment of trust and collaboration. Inside-out change. Covey emphasizes that true and lasting change begins from within. He explains that many people try to change their external circumstances without first addressing their internal attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors. This strategy is often ineffective because our internal perceptions and paradigms determine how we interpret and respond to external circumstances. To illustrate this point, Covey introduces the concept of the circle of influence and the circle of concern. The circle of influence encompasses all the things over which we have direct control, while the circle of concern includes all the things that worry us, but over which we have little or no control. Covey argues that proactive people focus on their circle of influence, actively working to improve the areas over which they have control. This approach is not only more effective, but also gradually expands the circle of influence, allowing people to have a more significant impact. Covey provides examples of how this shift in focus can transform people's lives. For example, he describes how a manager who focuses on improving their own leadership and communication skills can positively influence their team and work environment, rather than complaining about external factors like the economy or company policies. He also offers practical exercises to help readers identify their own circles of influence and concern, and to develop a plan to expand their circle of influence. Additionally, Covey discusses the importance of adopting a growth mindset. He explains that by focusing on improving our skills and capabilities, we can expand our circle of influence and achieve a greater impact in our lives and the world around us. He suggests setting personal and professional development goals and working constantly to achieve them. Principles of growth and change. In this chapter, Covey presents the 7 habits as a sequential and progressive path to personal development and effectiveness. He explains that these habits are based on correct principles that can be universally applied and that form a ladder towards independence and interdependence. The first part of the process focuses on self-mastery, private victory, which includes the first 3 habits. These habits help people move from dependence to independence, developing a sense of personal responsibility and self-discipline. The next 3 habits focus on interdependence, public victory, which is based on effective collaboration with others. Covey explains that true effectiveness in our relationships and professional life is achieved when we can work well with others, leveraging synergy and creating solutions that benefit all parties involved. The 7th habit, sharpen the saw, focuses on continuous improvement and self-care. Covey argues that to maintain a high level of effectiveness, we must constantly renew our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual capacities. This habit is the foundation of the other 6 habits, as it provides us with the energy and resilience needed to keep growing and improving. Covey offers a detailed guide for developing and practicing each of the 7 habits, providing practical exercises and examples to help readers apply these principles in their daily lives. He also emphasizes the importance of constant practice and continuous reflection to internalize these habits and make them part of our nature. Covey uses case studies and real-life examples to illustrate how these habits have transformed the lives of many people and organizations. Part 2. Private victory. Be proactive. This first habit focuses on personal responsibility and initiative. Covey explains that being proactive means recognizing that we are responsible for our own lives. Our behavior is a function of our decisions, not our conditions. Proactive people do not blame circumstances, conditions, or conditioning for their behavior. Instead, they recognize that their behavior is a product of their own conscious choice, based on values, rather than a result of external influences. Covey uses the stimulus-response model to illustrate the difference between proactive and reactive people. Reactive people allow external stimuli, such as circumstances or the behavior of others, to determine their response. In contrast, proactive people exercise their freedom to choose and respond according to their values and principles. To develop proactivity, Covey suggests several strategies and practical exercises. One of them is identifying areas where we can exert greater control and taking the initiative in small daily actions. For example, instead of complaining about a heavy workload, we can take the initiative to organize our time more efficiently or look for ways to improve our work processes. Covey also introduces the concept of proactive affirmations, which are positive statements that reinforce our commitment to proactivity. These affirmations can help us stay focused and motivated as we work to develop this habit. To illustrate the importance of proactivity, Covey shares stories of people who have achieved significant changes in their lives by adopting a proactive attitude. For example, he narrates the story of Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, who found ultimate freedom in his ability to choose his response to circumstances, even in the most inhumane conditions of concentration camps. This ability to find meaning and purpose in the most adverse circumstances exemplifies the power of proactivity. Covey also suggests practicing self-assessment exercises to identify our automatic reactions and develop greater awareness of our responses. These exercises help us recognize reactive behavior patterns and replace them with proactive responses based on values and principles. Begin with the end in mind. In this chapter, Covey urges us to define our long-term goals and objectives clearly. He describes the importance of having a clear vision of what we want to achieve in life and how this guides our daily decisions and actions. Covey introduces the concept of creating a personal mission statement, a declaration that reflects our values, principles, and objectives. The personal mission statement acts as a compass that guides us in making decisions and helps us stay focused on what truly matters. Covey provides examples and detailed steps for drafting this statement. He suggests reflecting on our roles and responsibilities in life, as well as our long-term dreams and aspirations. The statement should be an authentic reflection of who we are and what we value. Covey also discusses the importance of visualizing the end from the beginning in all our activities. This means having a clear vision of what we want to achieve before starting any task or project. By having a clear goal in mind, we can ensure that our actions are aligned with our long-term values and objectives. In addition, Covey offers practical techniques for applying this habit in our daily lives, such as setting short and long-term goals, weekly planning, and regularly reviewing our personal mission statement. By living with the end in mind, we can achieve greater clarity and purpose in our lives. To illustrate this habit, Covey shares stories of individuals and organizations that have achieved great things by having a clear vision and defined purpose. For example, he describes how successful companies like IBM and Apple have developed mission statements that guide all their strategic and operational decisions, allowing them to stay focused and aligned with their long-term values and objectives. Covey also suggests practicing visualization and meditation as tools to stay focused on our goals. These practices help us clarify our goals and stay motivated as we work towards achieving them. Put first things first. This habit focuses on time management and prioritization. Covey introduces the time management matrix, which classifies activities into 4 quadrants based on their urgency and importance. He urges us to focus our time and energy on activities in Quadrant 2, which are important but not urgent, such as planning, prevention, and personal development. Quadrant 2 activities include building strong relationships, identifying new opportunities, exercising, and learning new skills. By dedicating time to these activities, we can prevent problems and crises that would otherwise fall into the urgent quadrants. Covey illustrates the time management matrix as follows. Quadrant I: urgent and important activities, crises, pressing problems. Quadrant 2: not urgent but important activities, personal development, long-term planning. Quadrant 3, urgent but not important activities, interruptions, unnecessary phone calls. Quadrant IV, not urgent and not important activities, trivial distractions, time wasters. The key, according to Covey, is to focus on Quadrant 2. Effective people know that by investing in these activities, they can reduce the time and energy spent on crises and problems in Quadrant I. This also involves learning to say no to activities in Quadrants I and IV, which do not significantly contribute to our long-term goals and values. Covey offers practical strategies for better time management, such as using a weekly planner. He encourages us to identify our key roles in life, e.g., parent, professional, friend, and set specific goals for each role each week. This helps us ensure that we are balancing our responsibilities and dedicating time to what truly matters. Additionally, Covey emphasizes the importance of effective delegation. He urges us to delegate tasks that others can do, freeing up our time to focus on Quadrant 2 activities. He explains the difference between management, delegation, and leadership, delegation. The former involves telling someone what to do, while the latter involves empowering others to make decisions and solve problems on their own. To illustrate the importance of time management and prioritization, Covey shares stories of individuals and organizations that have achieved a high level of effectiveness by focusing on what truly matters. For example, he describes how business leaders like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates have used these principles to manage their companies and their lives more effectively. Covey also suggests practicing reflection and regularly reviewing our priorities and goals. These practices help us stay focused on what truly matters and adjust our action plan as needed. Part 3. Public Victory. Paradigms of Interdependence. Covey explains that effectiveness in our relationships with others is based on a paradigm of interdependence. He acknowledges that we are all interdependent and that our actions and decisions affect others. He describes how private victory precedes public victory. Only when we have achieved self-mastery can we work effectively with others. Covey introduces the concept of emotional bank accounts, where every interaction with another person can be seen as a deposit or a withdrawal in the relationship. A deposit can be a positive action, such as keeping a promise, being kind, or showing empathy. A withdrawal, on the other hand, could be a negative action, such as breaking a promise, being inconsiderate, or not listening. Covey emphasizes that to build strong and trusting relationships, we need to consistently make deposits in others' emotional bank accounts. This creates a reserve of trust that can help overcome the inevitable tensions and conflicts that arise in any relationship. Covey uses real-life examples to illustrate how emotional deposits and withdrawals affect our relationships. For instance, he describes how a leader who regularly makes deposits in the emotional bank accounts of their team, by showing appreciation and recognition, can build a more cohesive and motivated team. In contrast, a leader who frequently makes emotional withdrawals, by criticizing and belittling their team, can create distrust and demotivation. Covey also offers practical strategies for making emotional deposits in our relationships. He suggests practicing empathy, keeping our promises, and regularly showing appreciation and recognition. These actions not only strengthen our relationships but also create an environment of trust and collaboration. Think win-win. This habit focuses on seeking mutually beneficial solutions in our interactions with others. Covey describes the win-win paradigm as a mindset and heart set that constantly seeks mutual benefits in all human interactions. He urges us to avoid win-lose and lose-win paradigms, which are not sustainable in the long run. The win-lose paradigm is competitive and based on scarcity, where only one person can win at the expense of another. In contrast, the win-win paradigm is based on the belief that there is enough for everyone and that one person's success does not need to come at the expense of another. Covey suggests developing an abundance mindset, where we believe that there is enough for everyone, and practicing empathy, maturity, and synergy. Covey provides examples and strategies for creating win-win agreements and improving our negotiation skills. He explains that to achieve a win-win outcome, we must balance courage and consideration. having the courage to express our needs and desires and the consideration to understand and respect those of others. Covey uses case studies and real-life examples to illustrate how the win-win paradigm can transform our relationships and organizations. For example, he describes how a company that adopts a win-win approach in its negotiations with suppliers and customers can build stronger and more sustainable relationships, which in turn improves its performance and reputation. Covey also suggests practicing self-assessment exercises to identify our own paradigms and work towards developing a win-win mindset. These exercises help us recognize competitive behavior patterns and replace them with a more collaborative and positive approach. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. In this chapter, Covey highlights the importance of empathetic listening as the foundation of effective communication. He explains that most people listen with the intent to reply, not to understand. He encourages us to practice empathetic listening, where we genuinely strive to understand the other person's point of view and feelings before expressing our own. Empathetic listening involves not only hearing the words but also paying attention to the underlying feelings and meanings. Covey offers techniques to improve our listening skills, such as reflecting and paraphrasing what we have heard, asking open-ended questions, and avoiding interruptions. He explains how this approach can strengthen relationships and resolve conflicts more effectively. By seeking first to understand, we create an environment of respect and trust that facilitates open and honest communication. This habit is particularly important in conflict situations, where the natural tendency is to defend our position rather than seek to understand the other person. Covey uses real-life examples to illustrate the importance of empathetic listening. For instance, he describes how a leader who practices empathetic listening can better understand the needs and concerns of their team, allowing them to make more informed decisions and build a more cohesive and motivated team. Covey also suggests practicing empathetic listening exercises to develop this skill. These exercises help us become more aware of our own listening tendencies and work towards improving our ability to understand and connect with others. Synergize. Covey introduces the concept of synergy, which is the idea that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. He explains that synergy is based on creative cooperation and the pursuit of new and better solutions through teamwork. He details how synergy can be achieved by valuing and leveraging individual differences, leading to more innovative and effective results.